Welcome, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to Ask. This is our first show with Anabella Cabello and Dr. Scott Keller. Hi, Dr. Keller. How are you?
I'm great, Anabella. How are you tonight?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you. We are here tonight because we want to talk with you about Ayurveda and weight loss. I had the privilege before to interview Dr. Keller, and we talked about the benefits of Ayurveda and what is Ayurveda medicine. Can you tell us, Dr. Keller, briefly, what is Ayurveda?
Well, Ayurvedic medicine is the oldest form of healing that we have on the planet as we speak in recorded history. It goes back about 5,000 years, and it was a form of healing that was put together and kind of handed down over the generations by the ancient Indian rishis and Vedics, who discussed ways that we can use different energies and different types of body energies to balance each other. Everything from lifestyle to body composition to, effectiveness in business. All these things are considered in Ayurvedic medicine.
And can just very briefly, because for those of you who didn't watch the previous videos, I will invite you and encourage you to watch them. We talked in more length about Ayurveda and the different type of doshas, but can you briefly summarize what the different types of doshas are, please?
Sure. Ayurvedic medicine is broken down into 3 body and personality types. They're called Vata is the first personality type. That's the one that is the body that tends to, since we're working on weight loss tonight, and I think it's perfectly synchronistic that we're both wearing red tonight because weight loss is associated with generating what we would refer to as the internal fire or the pitta energy. Now there's 3 simple types. There's the Vata energy is the first dosha. The type or the label is called a dosha. The second type or dosha is called pitta. And the last one is kapha. The Vata personality and the Vata body type, let's start with body type first. The Vata body type is typically very thin and narrow and lean. Now, since we're focusing on weight loss tonight, we'll continue with the description of the body type of the next dosha, which would be pitta. I tend to be a good example of that. It's a little bit more, a little bit wider than the very narrow. We all know those types of people who are very Vata, very thin and very like a beanpole, we refer to them as. The Pitta type is more in the middle, or in American medicine we refer to as the mesomorphic, the middle type, which is a little bit more muscular, a tiny bit wider. Then the Kapha body type, they're the people that you see that are typically a little bit wider, more muscled, have a propensity for putting on and holding more weight, which is going to be our segue into the next discussion, from what I understand, about why do we gain weight.
Yes, let's dive into the juice right now. How can we use Ayurveda medicine for weight loss?
It's a great question. All of these 3 energies that we just discussed, the Vata, the Pitta, the Kapha, are all designed to stay in balance with one another. Typically what happens in weight gain is the balance and the amount of Kapha energy, that wider person, that more grounded person, that person who is very non-reactive and serene and loving. We know those personality types. That's that kapha energy, and that is the energy that also, unfortunately, causes us to gain weight and causes us to hold excessive body toxins. So when we talk in Ayurveda about ways to reduce weight, we similarly want to discuss ways to lower kapha energy and raise up the internal fire, which is more associated with the middle dosha, pitta.
All right, so I'm a little bit confused here, and I'm sorry. I want also our viewers to understand, those of us who don't know about Ayurveda medicine. If I understood correctly, weight gain is associated with an imbalance of the kapha energy. Is that correct?
Definitely.
All right. how do we know? How can somebody know that has an imbalance in kapha energy? Is it associated only with weight gain, or there are other
There's because
factors?
because
Other
Ayurvedic medicine is all encompassing with all elements of our life. It encompasses everything from your personality type to your proclivities towards activities, towards the foods you like, towards the way you dream, the way you conduct your everyday activities, right down to the gait on how we walk. So the best way to determine, now considering the fact that we all are a mixture of all three of
Right.
those energies, it's always best to have a qualified professional Ayurvedic specialist, like myself and a number of other people that I know are working this way as well in the chiropractic field and in the natural medicine field, to do an analysis. And this is what we do in my office. We do analysis, we ask a series of questions, and we determine what their largest dosha energy is that they're involved with. So when we know that, we can determine who has more of a tendency to put on weight. It's almost always associated with people who have an imbalance of kapha, meaning the kapha energy is too high. Now, the kapha energy tends to go out of balance when we experience things like lethargy, being very tired, sedentary lifestyle, feeling depression. Emotions are a key element in Ayurvedic medicine, and as far as our discussion is concerned tonight, we want to talk about how the emotions that are associated with weight gain could be controlled.
Right. Yes. However, before we go into the emotions, which is a very interesting subject, I would like to hear, Dr. Keller, what would be the next step if I want to lose weight, and you're saying when we gain weight there is an imbalance of the kapha energy.
Right.
What would be the next step? Yes, to visit a specialist such as someone like yourself, but what does the body or what does the person have to go through in order to gain that balance back?
It's a great question. What we're trying to essentially do is increase what Ayurveda calls the internal fire. I told you it was really beautifully synchronistic that we're both wearing red tonight, because colors are associated with balancing Ayurveda. And in increasing one's internal fire, the middle dosha, the pitta, like myself, tends to have a lot of internal fire. The fire is what breaks down body fat. The Ayurveda, the ancient Vedics laid out a series of analogies, and one of the analogies that's been described was if you imagine a block of cheese, actually. In a cold environment, cheese tends to be very solid. Excuse me. It tends to be solid, but as you expose that cheese to heat, it starts to disintegrate and it starts to dissociate. Through the dissociation, you have a breakdown, just like our body fat works the same way. When you expose our body cheese, if you will, I know it sounds a little disgusting, but it's true, to internal heat, we break down the body fat. And there are ways to do this, and I think that's probably what you're getting at, is how do we go about that? Well, what we try to do is we try to generate internal pitta heat in the digestion. There are a lot of herbs and activities that we can do for that. It's recommended that in the morning when you wake up, between the hours of 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., when the kapha energy is the strongest, that we don't use that time to eat, because kapha digestion is very slow. And during that time, we're supposed to be bringing in warm, if not hot waters, which tend to generate the system and get the internal fires burning in order to burn body fat and get the metabolism rolling. The second part of the kapha energy is in the evening between 6 p.m. and 10 p.m., which we're also not supposed to eat. You're supposed to try to eat just before that, and you won't be experiencing so much sedentary non-movement of the foods that we eat, so it won't accumulate as fat.
Are
There's
those
also
tips only for people who want to lose weight and have an imbalance of kapha energy?
Well,
or is it general tips for everybody?
That's a great question. It's general tips for everybody, but specifically when we're trying to address issues with weight loss, and I do this with many of my patients, when we're addressing weight loss, we want to do and take on certain foods that have what we call a thermogenic quality. Thermogenic quality will produce more pitta, internal digestive fire. Those things would be like, I mentioned the hot water in the morning.
Yes.
And then we want to utilize lemon in the water and maybe even a drop of cayenne. Things like ginger is the best thing of all. Ginger and lemon water in the morning really starts the fat burning process, and people have immense results from that.
Is this a process also of alkalizing the...
You're blending two disciplines
body?
by the Eastern and Western approach. It's not by chance that the very things that cause us to drop weight are also detoxifying us.
Right.
And also, those things tend to do what we call alkalizing the body. An acidic environment obviously produces more toxins and holds more toxins. Now, I'm reminded of a study that was done years ago at college in California, where they took identical twins who were on average 20 pounds overweight, and they subjected one of the twins over the course of 3 months to high amounts of water, in excess of 80 ounces a day. The other twin, who was still 20 pounds overweight, was subjected to far less water, maybe less than 20 ounces. The average difference over the course of that 3-month period was 7-pound weight loss, greater among the twin who had over 80 ounces of water. Now, what this tells us is that water, being the universal detoxifier and what we call a lyser, which breaks down toxins, is one of the best diet aids, and it's utilized in Ayurvedic medicine as well.
Is natural water room temperature okay, or does it have to be hot water?
It's mentioned that it be hot, and warm to hot is always best. Now, there are some other herbs that are mentioned, but the best herb and the best addition to the water is ginger, like we mentioned, and lemon. There are other things like using the use of cayenne and curry, which of course the foundations of Ayurveda come from the Far East and in India. So they were utilizing a lot of the herbs that they had available there. Now we have everything we want here, but I mean, if this was going back maybe 50 years where these things were not, 50 years here in this country, we would use things that produce an internal fire, like cayenne or black pepper is utilized in small amounts during those kapha periods between 6 and 10 a.m. and p.m.
So listen, everybody, start drinking hot water in the morning if you want to lose weight. Now, you mentioned about emotions, and that is really one of my favorite topics, and is my area of expertise. I work with the emotions that are trapped or that are lying underneath, residing underneath a particular behavior or an addiction, for example. For weight loss and an imbalance of the kapha energy, are there particular emotions that show up when there is an imbalance?
Again, another amazing question. I've been in practice 26 years, and I've been practicing my own brand, and those that know me and have come to me over the years for treatment know that we utilize an all-encompassing approach to total health and weight loss, which is also known as detoxification. If you really do the math and look deeper and deeper, weight loss and detoxification are really one and the same, because body fat is toxic. Now, to go beyond that, knowing that we are all encompassing holistic practitioners who approach this in a holistic way, we have to consider the person's emotions, because that's at its core. At its core, that's the foundation for the imbalance of what happens with weight gain. With weight gain, it's always a raising of the kapha energy. Now, how does that translate over to emotions? Well, kapha energy tends to be a sedentary, immobile, more non-moving type of energy. This is almost always associated with some form of depression, and sedentary lifestyle does not create an ambitious, fire-burning intestinal and gastrointestinal type of environment for the body. So one of the things that we do is we work on addressing the emotions and the depression that's associated with excessive kapha energy by number one, referring to life coaches who specialize in this kind of thing like yourself, and we've had great results. In fact, that's probably the first place I would start, because in being able to associate yourself with a life coach who knows how to address those issues and get the person's mood and morale going in the right direction, that in and of itself initiates a higher degree of internal
heat.
Truly. And motivation, because excuse me, those things are the exact opposite of sedentary depression.
Wow.
Also we utilize certain herbs like we mentioned, and lifestyle changes, but that's really where somebody like yourself would come in more about, generating a more active lifestyle.
Right. So ideally, for a person who has a kapha imbalance and wants to lose weight, would be to work the emotional part and also the nutritional part, and try to balance that kapha energy to see great results in the shortest period of time.
Definitely. Anything you can do to raise the mood of a person who's experiencing depression and associated weight gain can only help increase that pitta energy that's associated with faster metabolic rate.
Wow. It is so interesting to hear all that, and I really appreciate it. I really appreciate that you are here tonight, and I know you're coming from far. Where are you located?
Well, I actually just moved to the South Florida area 5 months ago. I've been 26 years in Manhattan at the Edgar Cayce Foundation. It's called the Association of Research and Enlightenment. And in that foundation, we utilized all forms of holistic medicine, including Ayurveda. I sometimes pat myself on the back for creating what I call Ayurvedic chiropractic, because that addresses the need for treatment protocol that's different among the different dosha energies. Now, 5 months ago, I moved here to Flow Life Holistic Lounge in Fort Lauderdale, and here we're continuing the same kind of work that we've been doing at the Edgar Cayce Foundation, just a more well-rounded approach to total health. It includes emotions, it includes holistic healing, it includes use of herbs and exercise therapy, and obviously chiropractic and various other forms.
Well, it is fascinating, this subject, and there is so much more that we can talk about. But for this evening and for the time that we have in this amazing space, can you tell us where they can reach you?
Sure. You can reach me on my website. It's www.drscottkeller.com, and there's another website, www.info@flowlifenyc.org.
Okay, perfect. If you have any questions, please comment. You can reach me at Anabella Life Coach in Facebook or in Instagram. Also, my webpage is www.anabellacabello.com. And I'm thrilled that this is our first program. We're launching this program called Ask. So please ask any questions. We're here to guide you, to help you. Tonight we're addressing Ayurveda and weight loss, but we're going to address all the benefits of Ayurveda.
I have a question for Ask for
Yes.
launching our premiere show. Going back to what we discussed regarding the change in emotions for people who have a kapha imbalance. Now, we've worked together, and I've had the greatest results with referring my patients to life coaches who specialize in nutritional disorders. What in your opinion has been the better, or a very beneficial way to deal with people who are suffering from this?
Who are suffering from?
Depression and lack of motivation and, sedentary lifestyle.
Yes. The lack of motivation, in my experience, is related to that disconnection from their true self. Therefore, through my program, I guide the patient or the client to connect with their true self. Sometimes, if they are suffering from a disease, the disease becomes part of their identity, and they think that the disease is them, but they are not the disease. It's just a temporary condition. So I help them separate the false self from the true self and truly connect with who they are. And when they find that connection and that spark, the depression disappears automatically.
Gives new meaning to the thought that we are not our body and we are not our job. We are a spirit that's above all that, and they're not to associate themselves with whatever they're associating themselves with as far as that imbalance.
Absolutely. And actually, for people who are struggling with weight, once they find that connection, they are able to connect with their intuitive therapist that resides within them, because I believe we all have the capacity to heal ourselves, obviously with the right support, with the right guidance. And I collaborate with people like yourself, who are specialists in nutrition and Ayurveda, to bring in the component of the nutrition, the food that we put in our mouth. I work with the food that we put in our soul, you know, how we feed our soul, how we feed our mind. So it is a group, it is a package. It's not just one thing. It is really to find sustainable recovery, and to find and to reach a transformation. We need to work with the mind, body, and spirit, not just one isolated aspect of the self.
Excellent. I have another question for you, since we have a little bit of time left, turning the tables here. How do we address the issues, and I get to ask this question in my practices all the time, how do we address this issue of soul food or food for the soul? And what I mean by that is, when we're getting back to our discussion on Ayurveda and ways to increase the thermogenic burning response of food and to increase weight loss, which is, again, a detoxifying environment for the body to do that. You know, there is another component about serotonin being released from foods that are very frequently referred to as comfort foods.
Yeah.
But we know that those comfort foods cause weight gain.
Okay.
Typically. So how do we address those, and how have you dealt with that with clients?
How do we address the soul food, or how do we address the comfort food? I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question.
How do we address the discussion with your clients? Now, we've had great success with the clients that I've referred to you, and I never had a chance to ask you this, but you know, we know that comfort food makes us feel warm and cozy,
But
on a rainy day.
I just didn't understand clearly your question.
How do you address that issue with your, because if you're having a food that makes you feel cozy and comfy and happy, we know that that raises our feeling of warmth and safety, and raises our serotonin and lowers cortisol, which we know is the hormone that keeps weight on us.
So is your question, how do we replace the comfort food with other coping mechanism to receive that same comfort and serotonin level, and without having the food that is putting weight and calories? Is that the question?
Yep, that's exactly what I'm getting at.
Right. So I start by identifying those comfort foods and the feeling that the person is receiving, and the feeling in the body. Where in their body are they feeling safe? Where in their body? Because our body talks to us. So when you're able to connect with your body and identify what the body is asking for, we are able to figure out if we really want to feel happy, protected, safe, or if we feel insecure. What is the feeling underneath that comfort food? Because everybody's different. Some people reach out for sweets, other people reach out for carbs. So what is that what is the function of the comfort food? because it has a function. It's helping us cope with some
Sure.
emotion or past trauma.
Right. What
So identifying what is really underneath that comfort food, and then we replace the coping mechanism. We don't reach out for the food, we reach out for something else. For example, it could be a relaxation technique, it could be a recreational
Sure.
activity. There are five, I call it the 5 R's. There are 5 aspects that we can reach out to. For example, it could be to feel relaxed for recreational purposes. It could be to educate ourselves in terms of what's happening to me, like watching a video or a motivational video or a podcast. It could be also another coping strategy is to go through the to-do list. Yeah, responsibility.
Sure.
So things to do, like, oh, I have to do laundry. So the idea is to delay the time from the urge to reach out for the comfort and the actual action. That's how we start. It doesn't happen overnight. So we start delaying, and at the beginning, the person starts reaching for the comfort food. But we start delaying the action by by going to these strategies that I teach them. So maybe the first time they delay the action 30 seconds, maybe
great.
then 3 minutes, then 5, then 10, and then it gets to a point where they don't reach out for the food, they go and do laundry.
Wow,
They
that's
do
wild.
something
That's
from
great.
their to-do list.
Well, follow-up question, if you don't mind. How?
I didn't expect this. This is not planned.
Well, since we're on the subject, why don't we get as much information out there for people who need to hear this? Do you suggest that at the considering that I've worked on a number of clients with you very successfully in this, and I'm a huge proponent of coaching in regard to weight loss and just normalizing all lifestyle activities. Do you recommend that your clients call you before each meal? Do they call you during a moment of crisis? How does that usually work for you?
Yes, I encourage them to call me or to send me a message via WhatsApp or Messenger. Email is, but if it's a quick response, if they need a quick response, the best way of communication is through WhatsApp, for example, or text. And yes, that's what I do as a coach. I'm there for them when they are in that moment where they have an urge and they need that support. So definitely, yes, I make myself available for my clients all the time.
One of the teaching techniques that we use in nutrition is to try to, like you said earlier, make people aware of why they're eating. And we always come back to this concept of, are we eating for recreation? I personally have a history of eating recreationally and for relaxation. I guess that's 2 of your 5 R's there. I'm guilty of, as many of us are. But in regard to making changes in this area, we like to discuss the concept of eating for survival and eating for medicine, which is precisely what Ayurveda discusses. There's like food choices that are designed to be medicine, if you will. Like, for instance, a person, as we discussed just a short while ago, the person with a kapha imbalance is lacking some of that internal burning. And they very much need to be aware of their choices of food, and if your choice for food is to use it medicinally, you can use certain things like the use of peppers, the use of hot heat-producing foods, and cayenne and curry, and things with turmeric.
It's becoming, becoming conscious of what our body truly needs at a specific moment, because sometimes we think we are physically hungry when we are not.
Right.
And that would be an amazing topic for our next program, why we eat and the reasons why we eat. But I want to thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for
having me.
this great adventure and being part of Ask. And thank you for TV Aldea Global for providing the space for this great program.
Thank you.
Thank you all, and we'll see you next week at the same time in Ask.